Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Rebels 247 Roundtable. I'm David Johnson. Well, it's been an interesting week in Ole Miss athletics this week with Athletic Director Ross Bjork getting involved. Bjork stealing a few headlines himself for taking up for his football program and his athletic program. First of all, the situation with the Opelika Auburn News photograph of Laquan Treadwell. The photograph ran in their Sunday morning edition, a very distasteful photograph. I think most everyone would agree with that. Distasteful at best. And Bjork fires off a letter to the editor midweek this week, expressing his own concerns and his own discontent and feelings about what that newspaper did with the photograph that depicted Laquan Treadwell's season-ending injury at the precise moment. Now, you gotta like it. It's certainly unusual for an AD to get, I guess, that much involved in controversies regarding his respective university. But you gotta like how Ross Bjork puts the gloves on and fights for Ole Miss. If you're an Ole Miss Rebel fan, very tactful in his response to the Alabama newspaper's decision to run the photograph, but at the same time got his point across. Bjork basically saying it was the wrong thing to do, that they ignored student-athlete welfare and even social responsibility. That letter, of course, it's full text on Rebels 247. Now, that wasn't the only incident this week that Ross drew some headlines. He's been in a little Twitter spat with a fan who has taken, not an Ole Miss fan, by the way, a guy from Kansas City who has taken to Twitter to say derogatory things about the Ole Miss football program. And Bjork fired back and even put a photograph of himself holding the TNA heavyweight champion wrestling belt, or might I say wrestling belt. Ross not a professional wrestler, but he did have the belt, and he put it on, and basically told the guy, "Come on, bro, come meet me face to face." And Ross looking intimidating in the photograph, and it's up on Rebels 247 as well. If you haven't seen it, I think most of the world has. It's No Shave November, so Ross has that 5 o'clock look about him, staring intently into the camera with the belt through over his shoulder. Haven't seen much more on Twitter about that from this guy. But in any event, kudos to Ross Bjork. And Rebel Nation should be proud to have an athletic director not afraid to stick his neck into the mix and defend his university. Okay, some big recruiting news to talk about on a couple of fronts. We'll talk about the freshest here this morning. 4-star linebacker Darren Kirkland out of Lawrence Central High School in Indianapolis, Indiana, decommits from Michigan Thursday night. Now, why is there significance around that regarding Ole Miss? Well, you guys know he was here on an official visit last weekend. He's being recruited by Ole Miss linebackers coach Tom Allen, who is a native of that Indianapolis area. Strong Midwest connections. And Darren Kirkland, the number 4 rated inside linebacker in the country in this 2015 cycle, inching closer, perhaps, to becoming an Ole Miss Rebel. Now, Kirkland will take an official visit to Oklahoma this weekend, so obviously you'll want to see how all that plays out. Notre Dame also in the mix as well. Obviously, at this moment, Michigan is out. Now, that sparked some concern, perhaps, amongst some in the Ole Miss fan base, particularly those of you who follow recruiting, as to whether or not a Darren Kirkland commitment to Ole Miss would affect a commitment from the nation's number 1 inside linebacker prospect, and that's Leo Lewis out of Brookhaven, Mississippi. Now, after talking to all of our sources, and of course, Leo doesn't talk very much or very often to the media. But after talking to sources, they don't think Leo has one iota of concern about Darren Kirkland joining him in this class. to the negative, that is. Everything we've heard, Leo was very hospitable to Darren, spent part of his time with him last weekend, and has no qualms whatsoever playing with Darren Kirkland on the next level. So I think you can throw that concern to the wind. I don't think that is very much of a concern. Darren Kirkland, a 4-star linebacker out of Big Ten country, will he be a Rebel? The coming weeks will tell us. He's an early enrollee, will be on the campus of his choice come January. All right, let's drop down a class. Let's go to the 2016 class. Let's talk about a 5-star quarterback prospect named Shea Patterson out of Calvary Baptist Academy in Shreveport, Louisiana. Patterson taking an unofficial visit to Ole Miss last week for the Auburn game, left feeling very, very, very strong about the Rebels. Now, we all know he has a brother, Sean Patterson Jr., who is currently a recruiting assistant on Les Miles' LSU staff. And by the way, Shea will be at LSU this weekend. But I've been told by sources to just kind of look at it as he's going to watch his brother's team play, the team in which his brother coaches. Will there be an early commitment from Shea Patterson? Very possible. Very, very possible. Do I believe Ole Miss is his leader right now? Absolutely I do. How soon could that early commit come? I think it could possibly come as soon as he wraps his junior season up. Now, Calvary Baptist unbeaten on the year. They're going to probably be playing in December. And if they make it all the way to this Louisiana 2A state title game, opposite Shea Patterson could very likely be out of New Iberia, Louisiana, Catholic High School quarterback Jason Pellerin, a 2015 Ole Miss commit. What a game that would be for Rebel fans who wanted to venture down to the Louisiana Superdome and perhaps see two of their quarterbacks of the future square off in a state title game. Is it a done deal with Patterson? I don't think it is. But I think Ole Miss is sitting as good as they could possibly sit right now at this very moment. Let's jump back into the borders of the state of Mississippi. A big-time offensive line commit set to announce his decision very soon. 2015 Petal High School offensive lineman Javon Patterson. Now, I have felt that Ole Miss has led for Patterson for the longest of times. I still feel that way today. There is no doubt that Mississippi State has made up ground with Javon during his recruitment. I mean, they're the number one team in the nation. They're an in-state team. They've been recruiting him about as long as Ole Miss has. You would expect them to make up ground. Auburn also still in the mix. But my gut, and I got a big gut, tells me Javon Patterson's going to be an Ole Miss Rebel in just a few short weeks. Probably will make that decision just days following the end of his high school season. Petal, of course, will be in the Mississippi Class 6A state playoff, so that may take a few weeks. But in the end, I believe Javon Patterson is an Ole Miss Rebel. So that's 3 bits of good news on the recruiting front. Now, real quickly, let's talk about Saturday's matchup with the Presbyterian College Blue Hose. You got to admit that's probably the most unique mascot name in all of college football, the Blue Hose. I put up a story earlier this week kind of explaining what the Blue Hose is and this, that, and the other. It has ties to the school's Scottish heritage and all this kind of stuff. Socks, think socks, stockings, Blue Hose. That's the track you want to be on here. Don't get off track with what that nickname is or may mean. 11 o'clock kickoff, Vaught Hemingway Stadium. It's going to be cold, folks. It's going to be chilly. Supposed to be a little overcast. course, this time of the year in Mississippi, you never know if the sun's going to be out or not. The sun could very well be out. It's not the stage that we've become accustomed, particularly in the last several weeks, of watching the Rebels play on. So it'll be interesting to see how many of you file into Vaught-Hemingway Stadium for the 11 a.m. kickoff tomorrow. As far as the breakdowns of this game, listen, there's really no need to break down position by position and what this guy should do against that guy. Listen, Ole Miss is by far the more superior football team at every single position on the field. Now, those of us older than 4 years old can certainly go back to the Jacksonville State debacle during the Houston Nutt era. But this is a different football team coached by a different man with players with different mentalities. And it's a much better football team. So you can throw that fear out of the book. Ole Miss will dominate this game. They'll get out to a big lead early. And then maybe we get to see Ryan Buchanan and Devontae Kincaid. That's not a maybe. We will get to see them audition for who may be the quarterback of this team next season. And get to see a lot of other future contributors play on Saturday. Hope to see you all there. 11 o'clock kickoff. Thank you for listening. I'm David Johnson.